Okay, so let's talk about international rules. You'd think there's one set of rules for everyone, right? Well, maybe not. Let's play a little game to see what I mean.
All right, picture this. You've got one monkey, and he's got one banana tree. It's his tree, his bananas. Super simple.
Now this whole game has just one rule, super easy, and that rule is don't touch another monkey's tree. That's it, simple.
But of course, there's a twist. There's a referee in this game, and, well, he applies that one simple rule a little differently. See, it all seems to depend on which monkey owns the tree.
Okay, enough with the monkeys and bananas for a second. Let's bring this into the real world. We're going to look at two major crises and two wildly different reactions from the West. We're talking about Ukraine and Venezuela.
So when it came to Ukraine, the West was loud. I mean, really loud. You heard sharp tones, constant condemnations. Putin is a war criminal. Then you have Venezuela. Its president gets arrested, and the volume, it just drops. Almost complete silence. What they call a strategic silence.
And that brings us to our first big idea here, sovereignty. The whole concept of who owns the tree. It's the idea that a country, or, our monkey, has the absolute right to control its own stuff, its own territory.
When it came to Ukraine, the West's message was crystal clear. Borders are not to be touched. You don't get to change them by force. Ukraine's land belongs to Ukraine, and its people get to decide their own future. End of story. Period. But then you look at Venezuela, also an independent nation. Its president gets arrested, and that really loud, passionate defense of sovereignty we just heard, it kind of vanished. All that was left was this weird hesitation, this quiet, awkward unease. And there's that term again, strategic silence. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's when powerful nations just decide not to say anything about a major international event. And why would they do that? Well, a lot of the time, it's to avoid rocking the boat with a powerful ally. In this case, that ally was the United States.
Okay, so that leads us right into our next big question. Who gets recognized as the real leader? Who does the West actually say is in charge?
With Ukraine, it was super straightforward. No confusion, no hemming and hawing. The West's position was totally firm, completely unwavering. They absolutely picked a side.
The message was united. President Zelensky's government is the one and only legitimate representative of the Ukrainian people. Any of those Russian-installed authorities, not recognized. Annexations of places like Crimea, totally illegal.
But then, you guessed it, we turn our attention to Venezuela. And it feels like the whole story just gets flipped completely upside down.
I mean, this table really lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at the elected president. In Ukraine, Zelensky gets full support. But in Venezuela, Maduro is delegitimized. What about the opposition? In Ukraine, they're basically ignored. But in Venezuela, opposition figures like Guaido and Machado get full-throated support. And the big question, what's driving these decisions? For Ukraine, the West points to international law. For Venezuela, it looks a whole lot like U.S. foreign policy.
And this difference wasn't just behind the scenes in policy meetings. It was also about what leaders were saying out loud, in public. It's like the volume of condemnation was turned all the way up for one crisis and then barely audible for the other.
You had some European leaders who were pretty open about their support for the U.S. position. For instance, Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, called the actions regarding Venezuela a legitimate move to protect regional security. I mean, that's pretty much echoing Washington word for word.
But then you had others who were a lot more careful with their words. A prominent German political leader, Friedrich Merz, described the U.S. intervention as a complex matter requiring careful study, which, let's be honest, is a statement that says absolutely nothing and challenges absolutely no one.
And this pattern, you see it again when you look at how human rights were discussed. For human rights in Ukraine, there was constant loud outrage. We heard nonstop talk of war crimes and gross violations with endless demands for accountability. And for human rights in Venezuela, specifically when its president was detained, just silence. Crickets. No questions about his detention, no calls to make sure his rights were being protected.
Okay, so let's tie this all together and go back to our monkey and his banana tree. We have one game, but it really starts to feel like there might be two different rule books, doesn't it?
The pattern seems pretty straightforward when you think about it that way. Step 1. A crisis happens involving a banana tree. Step 2. The referee looks over and sees which monkey is involved. And step 3, the rules are suddenly applied differently, all based on who the player is.
So yeah, it seems that Banana Game, it isn't so simple after all. It really looks like the rules just aren't the same for every player.
Which leaves us with one big final question to think about. Are the rules of international politics really about the game itself, or are they actually just about the players?